Welcome everybody to the, I should imagine, Queensland's first medicinal cannabis workshop. We're going to be discussing everything from the plant down to the active medicine itself, extractions, safety precautions, government positions, legalities. We're going to be going over the lot. I'll try and cover it as efficiently as possible. I'm not the best public speaker, so everyone will really have to bear with me, and I'm totally not used to doing slideshows or anything like that. So bear with me, and the information that you're probably going to pick up is going to be really valuable.
Can everyone hear me like this? Yeah. So everyone can just hear me if I talk to them? Yeah. Excellent. All right. So there's a couple of things with medicinal cannabis that are going to come out basically to whether it be try and derail, whether it be confusion of interest, and we'll touch on those as well. So starting off, I'm going to let everyone know about basically what the cannabis plant is and how that works. So cannabis has got three individual strains, and they generally are sorted by origin in the world. They can be sorted by their particular traits in terms of the effects that they can give, medicinal, and what they are in terms of their physical traits. So each individual species of cannabis, they all derive from cannabis sativa. In a lot of botany magazines and stuff, you'll find that cannabis L sativa is the known genotype, which is cannabis. But in regards to the species, science has found that we do have subspecies of cannabis sativa, and we'll just break them down into sativa, indica, and ruderalis. Sativa is a long, slender plant. It's generally known to be grown outdoors. It will produce larger flowers in its full entirety. The plant itself has got quite unique medicinal features as well, like 100% sativa. Talking about something that has a pure genotype means that it came from a true origin, somewhat of a heirloom breed. Everyone's aware of heirloom tomatoes and things like that. So a true sativa would be a heirloom variety of the cannabis species sativa. So a heirloom variety. That's if it was 100% from its original genetics. It's got traits. The traits the plant has is listed. What you'll be able to notice between the different species of cannabis is that they have such unique individual traits, whether it be medicinal, smells, the physical characteristics of the plant, everything changes between the species. And then things can be bred together, whether it be indica, sativas, and they're brought together in another breed of plant. So the next one is indica. Indica is a shorter plant. It's generally used in indoor cultivation, in crossbreeds with sativa. Because of its shorter size, they'll use them under lights, and it produces quite a couch locks type sedative effect, which it's quite well known in the recreational community as being a go-to cannabis, but not taking away from it in the medicinal field, because the effects itself are truly stunning when you talk about the species itself and what it offers for its medicinal properties. And they're completely different to each other species, whether we're talking sativa, indica. Probably the most prominent effect of indica versus sativa would be promoting sleep. Promoting sleep is in recovery of whether it be someone in any medical situation where their body's needing to repair itself. This is how we get better, is sleep. Basically, when you sleep is when your body can actually repair itself the most. So promoting good sleep, or being able to manage someone's sleep habits when they're under medication or a treatment like chemotherapy is extremely important. So indica on its own really does promote the more sedative effects of cannabis. It's not so much a classification to say that a sativa wouldn't be able to put you to sleep. I can tell you, it does. It's just generally how much you consume and the style of medication. I'll talk about that as well, difference between edibles and how the body receives these different should I say, traits. Ruderalis. This is an extremely interesting species. It is a heirloom variety of cannabis found in Russia, colder climates. The beauty of the plant itself is that it was discovered fairly recently in terms of its uses. So Ruderalis is used for actually creating new strains. Now, these strains, when you're talking about breeding genetics and, should I say, creating new strains, you would look at the Ruderalis if you wanted the plant to flower automatically. So if, for instance, the plant was to have to wait throughout the season, you were to put it in your backyard and you wait for it to flower throughout the year, that's not the case with the Ruderalis. They've taken these genetics from these colder climates where the plant has adapted, its genetics has adapted to flowering of its own accord. So it's a time-based thing until this plant flowers. There's no seasonal change, there's no light change, it's time dependent. That's the genetics of this plant, and it's most especially involved when it's bred with an indica or a sativa. You've created an automatic. This is a plant that will flower of its own accord, not due to seasons. So that's Ruderalis. It's a very special species of cannabis, and no one knows about this like, I don't know many people here who'd be like, oh yeah, Ruderalis, that's my plant, you know? Not many people know it. So yeah, have a look into Ruderalis when you get home and find out a little bit about autoflowers, and they can be extremely handy for the medicinal community. If you want to flower a plant and we're in winter, we've got no chance in Queensland. You breed a strain with your perfect CBD Shark Shock or your Canatonic or whatever it is, and then breed it with a Ruderalis, that thing's going to flower automatically for you. You're not going to have to wait for the seasons to come about. So these aren't GMO genetic modifications. This is taking a species of cannabis which is adapted to flowering in a time period and then mixing it with any other cannabis plant. So you're creating an automatically flowering plant. Exactly, man. Like the ability for you to be able to work with the genetics of cannabis is absolutely limitless. Science is only catching up to this now. Also the medicine side of things. The medicine side of things, to be honest, is further behind the cultivation of cannabis. Cultivation of cannabis has been around for eons, well, as long as it can be. And the knowledge base is rich. So we talk to those recreational growers. I hate to say it, they're the guys with the initial information that we have to look at and say, what are you guys doing and how can we use it for medicine? That's where I'm saying we don't want to bring these two circles together in terms of stigma, recreational and medicinal, but there is some learning there that has to be shared, and we have to be thankful for that. So I always say, this recreational is horrible in terms of what it can do, say for teenagers abusing the drug, but for the grower that has been, should I say, increasing his knowledge base and creating strains, that one strain that he could have created 5 years ago, supplying people with cannabis on a recreational basis, could have created the strain that saves your child's life. So do have respect for the recreational people and what they've done. I'm not saying that it's anything that I agree with, but they have their place and they've done their work. Very few medicinal growers have been around in the last 20 years. It's been quite popular, but prior to that, it was the hippies and pirates. So they were the guys that created those strains and the knowledge base. Now, talking strains. Strains is just basically a mix of genotypes. Genotype is a species. So any basic gene in a plant, that's creating a strain. Now, a hybrid generally refers to a mix of species of genotypes from different origins. So for instance, if the plant was from Russia, and then you've got another plant from China, they're quite different in terms of their origins and their genetic traits, then that's when crossing those two signatures would be truly classed as a hybrid. The breed is generally mixing different genotype strains in the creation of a new strain. So I just put that in there so when people say, what's the breed of a cannabis plant? It's just the same as a strain. It really, is referring to a plant being bred. The genotype is the genetic signature, which is a signature ranging from a molecule's chemical makeup, pretty much everything you could imagine in science. The genotype is its signature. The phenotype itself is the physical characteristics, the look of the plant, perhaps people go down as far as saying the smell and the characteristics of the plant is the phenotype. So a phenotype is the expression that a plant gives within its genotype. So whatever signature this plant has, it also has a phenotype, which is large leaves, strong smell, grows to this tall, flowers in 8 weeks. All these facets are making up the phenotype. The genotype, as I said, is the signature behind its origin. The genotype is the signature. The phenotype is the physical look of the plant behind that particular breed. Moving on. So, your medicine on the plant comes from the trichrome. The trichrome is it's basically a portion of the cellulose material that is somewhat of a duct on the plant. It's an excretion. So what it does is these small walls fill up through these ducts, and they're filling up with a whole heap of things. Filling up with cannabinoids. There's so many cannabinoids. Terpenoids. It's filling up with them. It's filling up with flavonoids and a whole heap of other compounds that science hasn't even discovered yet. So we're talking about where the medicine is on the plant. Now buds are where you'll find most of your trichromes and most of your active content. The calyx on the plant is the small flower portions that are forming outside of basically a resin sac. So that is where majority of the medicine on a plant is produced. There will be certain medicine produced on the leaves. There'll be certain medicine produced on a number of areas of the plant. If we're talking about being able to extract concentrates, if it doesn't look like that, don't bother trying to pull oil out. So there's a couple of things where I say to people it's not so much the style of the plant, it's how much trichromes are actually on it when it's being grown, and that can be a number of reasons that cause a plant to have a lot of trichromes, very few trichromes. It can be the strain, it can be the grower. So that's another reason for you to understand how much medicine do I get from a bag of pod? Well, the grower will determine that, not the strain. The strain will determine its maximum level, but the grower itself will determine its actual loading. So you grow a plant terribly, it'll give you a terrible result in terms of trichrome. You don't grow it terribly, and it'll give you a good result. So there is a major difference between good medicine and bad medicine, and what they call a full terpenoid, cannabinoid, and flavonoid profile. Those profiles come from a plant that has been grown to its full extent, full ability, and then it's reached at the top of the profile that it can produce. So yeah, if a plant isn't produced in its optimal scenario, it's not going to be able to produce the optimal medicine. And just science has backed that with tests they've done. You know, I love the idea of bush bud and bud grown outside. But when we're talking about medicine, I'm a believer that unless that cannabis is being extracted with commercial means, meaning they're able to remove mold, they're able to measure the heavy metals in the soil, hydroponics is 100% safer, and most definitely for producing medicine. In my opinion, and backed by science, it can be controlled 110%. Where organically, you cannot control the rain coming down on a big bud and then the mold forming the next morning. You just can't. So that's fact. Do you know what I mean? As much as we love our bush bard and all this, it isn't the optimal scenario to grow medicine unless it's for yourself. If we're talking about selling it on the commercial market, that's all they want to hear about, indoor growing. If you're talking about saving someone's life, put a plant in the backyard, harvest as much resin off it as you can and try and kill the cancer. You know, there is no limits to you being able to grow the cannabis this way, but the limits are really within how you decide that you're going to grow it, I guess. So I do have to touch on that. So terpenoids. A plant that is, say, a strain that could be a, let's pick one, essential oil. So the amount of strains that we've got that could harbour that terpenoid could be majority of these on here. So what we're looking at is a single chemical molecule that has got nothing to do with THC. It's got nothing to do with CBD. This is a terpenoid of its own. This is generally a smell of the cannabis plant. The smells themselves carry medicinal value. The key, and should I say that the ideal scenario behind being able to create the perfect medicine is to be maxing out these levels in the plant. Maxing are really important in regards to the marriage between the way CBD, THC works with the human body. And Ash is going to talk about some stuff in regards to other marriages with different natural components that can also enhance the way that these transport into the body. So not a lot of the time, is that right, Ash? Yeah, so we really need to know that cannabis...
I forgot what it was.
So THC, CBD is the tip of the iceberg in trying to talk about cannabis medicine. A lot of the pharmaceutical derivatives of cannabis are only focusing on those chemical compounds, which this is why I want you guys to know about terpenes. And there's a number of them. Like, we've got heaps of terpenes listed that are massively beneficial. I'm just leaving them up so you can have a bit of a read and babbling on. It's really important to get on top of what exactly, with stuff like this, that you're going to be able to, I'd say, understand with cannabis. It's a massive portion of cannabis medicine that is left alone completely. Flavonoids are as well. I won't touch on it too much because it's going away from, like, we're talking about smells here. We're talking about smells, and these contents in cannabis are quite low. As I was saying, if you're really, really good at it. Now, a friend gave me this jar, okay? Now, I can recommend that this person is stunning in what he does. Being able to produce a terpenoid that can hang around in a jar for, I don't know how long. Pass it around and have a smell. That's a terpenoid, okay? The jar itself, it just stays there. Real terpenoids and extremely potent ones are there in mass. So if you grow a plant well, you will get huge loadings of these, okay? If you don't grow a plant well, and I'm not saying outdoors can't grow it like this, outdoors will, just sitting over there going, no, you know what I mean? Outdoors will provide you with these same results. All I'm saying is that there are portions that the industry, when it looks at it, sort of says, well, it's just not 100% safe, you know, in terms of what the plant can absorb in regards to heavy metals. So I just have to get that across, and it's harder to control the environment, especially in Queensland. You can't produce above, say, 30 degrees, you're not going to be able to produce a decent terpenoid loading on a plant. So which means in Queensland, we can't produce good terpenoids in summer. Sorry. Do you know, do you know what I mean? Like, you can produce a good loading, but not the maximum loading that a strain would be able to achieve, because that's temperature based. So there is a component involved with the production of terpenoids in a plant that's to do with temperature. So, and that's another thing going back. It's on why I'll talk about that. So I'll shut up about the argument between hydroponics and organics, because they're very much a marriage together. It's just where they sit with what they can do. Probably some of the most important terpenoids that are found in cannabis are also found in other chemical compounds in different things. So what I'd have to say is, if you're looking at choosing a medicine, a cannabis medicine, and you want a particular effect, or you want the medicine to be able to promote a certain function. For instance, that terpenoid has an anti-inflammatory compound. So that's what I'd recommend that for. Flavonoids, that's the flavour of cannabis. The flavour of cannabis is probably the most important thing if you're talking about if you're talking about edibles in some regard. I won't talk about smoking it and even vaporising it, because the majority of the time, So going into flavonoids, we do have medicinal benefits. And eating it, most definitely, but in the industry they do generally look at flavonoids as in terms of the flavour profile of it. But it does have a number of medicinal benefits, and I'd have to say there are a few flavonoids that have been found to be quite highly, should I say, the amount of content that's found in some of these strains that are being developed is extremely high just in flavonoids. And then it falls out in other areas. So when you try and breed a plant with more THC, it'll fall off on CBD. When you try and bring in more CBD into a plant, it'll reduce the THC. And these things are a balance that really has to be found with breeding cannabis, and that's where a good cannabis breeder and selecting a strain, being able to find something that suits medicinally, whether we're looking for this, whether we're looking for inhibitors, whether we're looking, it's extremely detailed, and I can't go in and explain this. This is a couple of catalogues of seeds from overseas in Amsterdam, and they're all opened up, full of their own strains. These are each breeder with their own strains, and they're all very high class. It's just limitless. So that's just one street in Amsterdam. No joke. It is extremely large. Should I say, how sought after being able to get that niche strain is, and in the and that's the recreational community that really brought that about. And taking back to the medicinal, it's really lended us a helping hand. So as I say, so with cannabis, there's really, I break it down like this. So we're aware that we've got the cannabinoids, we've got the flavonoids, and we've got the terpenoids. But really, how cannabis is used from a medical point of view is in two forms. It is either acid cannabinoid, which is a cold extract of some form, raw food, juices, and then you've got decarboxylated, which is a heated form of extract. It could be a vaporized, heated in a sonificator. You'd be able to extract it using alcohols and then basically heat the oil itself. That becomes active. So there's certain psychotropic effects that are brought on by activating cannabinoids. And those effects can be anything from just general sedation to anxiety if you're not used to it. So there are bad side effects. You can get anxiety from cannabis. And there's some really good side effects, like activated, that'll kill cancer. So I always say, between the two, they're a marriage. Without using both therapies in a lot of cases, you're not really getting the full spectrum of the cannabinoids. So I've got some slides that'll hopefully make sense of that.
You're right.
You can't see this, so I'll try and explain it from the top up. Plants in raw form are extremely beneficial. They carry a number of effects that are mirrored against a heated compound. So what you're getting between raw and heated is very similar in what they can do. It changes the chemical makeup of the cannabinoid or the chemical compound itself. So THCA is converted slowly into THC, CVA, and then THC is the psychotropic version of it, which would affect you in a regard that you'd be able to feel the sedation. If your child was to be suffering aggressive seizures or someone had post-traumatic stress, it can really level those areas of the brain that do need calming. There's electrical pathways that really do need an activated form sometimes to be able to dull those receptors. So from overloading and causing what they do, and that's the turmoil that a lot of sufferers go through, whether it's pain, seizures, effects of not eating, from chemo, AIDS sufferers, people with chronic diseases. They're all going through a part of their body isn't operating properly, whether it be raw or heated. It's very hard for us to say which, whether it be THCA or a THC, that is going to help these people. So trialing cannabis treatments is very important. Stepping from raw treatments to heated treatments to combining the treatments, these are things that can be done. So a raw treatment generally won't get you high. Generally doesn't affect you in any psychotropic way. Now, that's really, really handy for treating children, and it's really handy for being able to give people extremely large doses. So if you are wanting to kill cancer, there'd be a good chance of dropping a bomb on them with the raw, meaning get juices into them, raw extracts, as much cannabinoids you can load the body with, and then use this as a heated version for sedation, getting the cancer patient to sleep, using it after chemotherapy and things like that. And between the two therapies, you're actually loading the cannabinoids beyond what you could do with heated, because you bomb them out. If you give someone a gram of cannabis oil, heated, meaning activated cannabis oil, it's gonna hammer them, it'll put them in bed. But if you marry that up with a gram of CBD extract, CBD has some sort of antagonist effect on THC. Sorry, not antagonist.
Adaptogen.
It's like a that's very, very true. It's like a bridle. It carries it, and it makes a more of a comfortable transition to being an accepted medication to the body. So THC on its own, to be honest, can be quite abrupt if dosed really rough. They can have extremely rough side effects that cancer patients don't need. So be aware if you're offering someone cannabis oil for the first time, don't think it's funny or anything to give them a large amount. Know that they'll just spin out. Sometimes it can be really horrible, so I say to people, be careful with dosing with cannabis, especially in a heated form, extract. And then going to an aged cannabis. Aged cannabis produces other I call them end-stage cannabinoids. And these are CBNs. Delta-8 THC, CBL, CBLA. These have got extremely powerful effects as well. People are under the impression that once you go past here that it's dead. You know what I mean? No. This is whole therapy. This is whole therapy right here. So we're talking about being able to bring a synergy together between raw, heated, and aged. And they're the levels of transition between cannabinoids. So as a cannabinoid changes in with heat, it changes with its chemical state, and it also changes its medicinal properties. So I hope so. So phytocannabinoids are the, the structure of the cannabinoid profile in a plant. Now, ranging from strain to strain, you could have a strain that doesn't have any CBD whatsoever. You can have a strain that has the same amount of CBD as it does THC, and those strains are called 1-to-1s. So if you hear people talking about a strain 1-to-1, 2-to-1, they're talking about the ratio between generally THC and CBD. So I have this up here. It's got all the, everyone's seen this online. I don't have to show you, past your Facebook probably 100 million times, and it goes by each cannabinoid and lists its beneficial medicinal. This is a non-psychotropic wheel. So this is an acid form of cannabis, meaning there has been no heat to apply to these cannabinoids, and these are the effects that they produce in terms of medicinal results. So we've got the THCA, acid form, THCV, which is actually a step before that, and definitely the CBG has been studied quite recently in depth. We're waiting on findings to come back from recent studies, particularly on CBG. So a lot of beneficials are to be had from raw forms of cannabis and also heated forms of cannabis. The two are very much, should I say, confusing for a lot of people. So yeah, I'll try and iron that out a little bit later, when I talk extractions. Okay. There's supposed to be something here that explains the boiling point of terpenes. Now, terpenes are quite robust. They don't generally evaporate until around the 150 mark. You're pretty safe with most terpenes, so you can go pretty high in what you can do, but there are particular terpenes that will evaporate and distillate slowly. So I always say 120 degrees, nice safe mark, and you'll be able to keep the, as soon as you sort of hit that 150 degrees, you can lose a couple of beneficial terpenes. And I just can't remember the name.
It's 155 for the vaporizers for the THC, like to affect you for the cycle.
It is one.
So that'd be about that, I think, 155, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for vaping out, yeah. And then that means vaporizer is turning the molecules into a vapor form, which is boiling point. So when I'm talking about a boiling point, when you're using a vaporizer and you choose a temperature, that temperature itself is the boiling point of the cannabinoids. So if you're choosing a temperature of 190, you go and look at the boiling point of cannabis, and it's 150, you've just gone over it. But there are a lot of other things that you have to put more heat into. Terpenes. So as I said, terpenes actually boil a little bit hotter. So there's a reason to have your vaporizer a bit hotter. But you don't have to activate terpenes, so there is no need to heat them in raw form. They are available to your body without being activated. So a terpene, very different to a cannabinoid, and very beneficial. All right, medicinal cannabis. What is medicinal cannabis? We covered it in the plant form, and we're going to cover it in the, should I say, consumable form. We've got, and then cannabinoids. What strain do I need? Does everyone, with what I was going over with some of the different strains and what is available and the differences between the strains, has anyone got any questions on what this is about? Like what for instance, what strain you'd be imagining that you would need? Like say for instance, yeah.
There's different types of indicas, right?
Yeah.
And that's the one that you use for the oil, is that correct? Or is it the other one?
Anything, really, again, a real good question.
There's on the Charlotte's Web.
Yes.
That's a strain of indica, is that correct?
A lot of
It's
the
a high
time,
CBD one.
a lot of the time crossbreeds, and in their regard, high CBD. That's it. What cannabis do I need? Everyone sort of asks that question.
Okay, what is the strain that try for epilepsy kids?
Sure. It is the strain that works. So I know it's very hard for me to sit up here and say that if someone's got epilepsy or this or that, but it is the strain that works. We need the options in Australia. The reason why I put that question there was hoping someone would ask, what strain do I need for this?
What could be good for you now could be different to 6 months' time as well.
Yeah, for instance, the options are what we need. There is no one strain that works for someone, and that's why I put the question down, is because when it comes down to it, we need options. We need a hell of a lot of them. Yeah?
So we have to try everything until we find something.
Sure do, mate. And the thing is that it can't harm you. Like any other pharmaceutical that they barrage you with, that they just pour down your throat, you know, that can kill you. That can limit your brain function. It can actually disturb the way that everyone operates around you, because you're doing it to them. You know, if it's a child, you're giving them this. You're doing it, you know, so there's psychological burden on the carer. None of that with cannabis. Try this one, try that one. We're getting some good effects here. We're getting some great results. How about better results? Try a different one. Do you know what I mean? So the beauty of, there's very little people that don't respond whatsoever, and there are people that respond with adverse effects. If, for instance, a child is given a cannabis oil that isn't suited to their profile of what they need, it could increase their seizures. It could. And these are things that have to be, should I say, monitored by a carer. These are things that really has to be understood in a whole plant therapy combination. Going back to that thing where I was saying raw, heated, it may not be the strain that has to be changed. It may need to be the active content of cannabinoids. So for instance, if a child is on a acid base because the mother doesn't want to get the child stoned whatsoever, they don't want to have any sedative effects, and they're saying it's just not working, they could put that child or sufferer on a activated form of cannabinoids and have the results that they want. Quality of life is in check, and they survive. So the choice of strain is one thing. Finding what strain do I need is one thing, but what style of treatment is another. Juicing, oils, tinctures, or pastes, rubs, balms, really good ones. No, there's bad ones as well. So the bad stuff that you'll see from cannabis is stress, anxiety if it doesn't suit the person, for instance the strain. I can vouch to that. If I've had a particular strain, I manage my bipolar and anxiety with cannabis. And to be honest, I've struggled with strains, and that's why I increased my knowledge as much as possible, because I had a really rough road trialing different strains, and I found a couple that worked, and that was the gateway to my door opening for society, my personal abilities, my work life. Everything changed for me when I found that strain. Prior to that, I was still medicating with cannabis and pharmaceuticals, not getting anywhere apart from suicide. So I really just had to find an option so I could keep my heart beating. Do you know what I mean? It was just I had no option. So side effects that I received in the beginning was like anxiety if I didn't find the right, I just found that I was medicating, but it only last for maybe half an hour or something like that, and then I'd go back and medicate again, and I just wasn't happy with it, and I'd also have anxiety that I was medicating on those regimes, overusing cannabis, starting to use it recreationally because of the amount that I was using. I was doing it at such a reoccurring rate that I treated it then, in my head I'm going, no, this is recreational because I'm constantly using it, you know? And then I understood that it was my aversion to a particular strain, and that, to be honest, is heavy sativas. Heavy sativas with me make me think way too much. They sort of spike my bipolar a bit. They still calm me down enough that I'm not manic. So if I was hitting my peak in terms of a manic episode, that would still level me to a point where I wasn't a danger to myself. But most definitely, it wasn't the best choice of strain for me. So yeah, just found one and it worked, and that's the key. So as I said, the side effects are very minimal in terms of the benefits. As I say, when I was having those side effects, I was in a point where I was a danger to myself. So not when I was having the side effects. When if I wasn't to use the cannabis and to use pharmaceutical medicine, I would have been a danger to myself. It wasn't a matter what strain it was able to level me out. I just had some side effects. Treatment options. There's a number of really good options, and we're talking both activated and non-activated. So stuff that does get you high and stuff that doesn't get you high, or sedative, whatever. Oils. Everyone knows oils. Everyone knows tinctures. Infusions are a little different. You can generally call these infusions coconut oil, MCT. Not so much a tincture. A tincture, you'll take a little bit of oil and mix it with something, you've made a tincture. But if you're infusing, you mix the cannabis itself with this. So grind up cannabis, put it in the jar, put that on top and leave it for a week, and you've infused the cannabis into the oil itself, because it's a fatty acid. Coconut oil is a fatty acid. It's a natural solvent, so it's a solvent in its own right that you can consume, and it's really good for you. So that itself will cut the cannabinoids, and it'll even cut the waxes. Some people like waxes in their oils. Personally, I don't know what they're for. They're wax. They're lipids. So yeah, they're the solid particles that you'll find at the bottom of some bottles of tinctures and stuff like that. They're waxes. So vaporizer. Vaporizer is really popular. I use a vaporizer. I use vaporizer and edibles. So that's the way I medicate. I medicate via a vaporizer, and I eat cookies and things like that at night time. So it's my regime. It's what I do to stay alive. And pastes are coming up. They're coming up in everywhere. Overseas, pastes are going stupid because you can just get a bunch of cannabis, grind it to a powder, drop a little bit of oil on it. Like, you know, you've got a paste. You just use that, whether it be like a garlic paste that you've got in your fridge. Not the same. You generally be taking doses and things like that. So juices. Look, to be honest, if you've got the option to juice a plant, and I think outdoor is awesome for this. This is where outdoor performs. You throw your plants out there as much as you want. As I say, the only thing I'd guarantee indoor for is if you have to make a THC acid. If it's guaranteed that you don't want to get any sedative effects, don't let it out in the heat. You know what I mean? Like, science has proven that. Juices, with a massive, say you put a large sativa outside, and he's just towering over your neighbour's fence. You can just go and rip leaves off that, like grab it and just rip a bunch of leaves off, and throw it through a cold press juicer with a little bit of coconut oil and Ash. What would be a juice that you would make?
Well, you juice all precursors that make your receptors open before you take cannabis. You've got the receptor for it. So you put a blueberry or anthocyanin. You put a green tea, you make that a kombucha drink. I bought a kombucha drink to show you here today, and you can recipe.
So Ash is going to talk to us about how raw forms can enter the body efficiently, to open the gateway to whole therapy. Cannabis whole therapy is a gateway that needs to be opened. And I personally don't know that. I've got great cultivation knowledge. I've got pretty good cannabis knowledge all around and stuff like that. But when it comes down to health and stuff like that, I'm going to get Ash to talk about these synergies. And the synergy in cannabis therapy is quite important, because Ash was explaining something, and I'm probably going to take a bit of his thing, but you know the B vitamin in an energy drink?
Yeah.
Well, that is the receptor, unlocks the receptors that lets the taurine and all that work. So without the B vitamin, you'd have to throw loads of that taurine back before it hit you. You throw a bit of B vitamin in there, man, you're unlocked. That stuff will wire you. You know what I mean? And basically, cannabis, terpenes, cannabinoids, acid forms, activated forms, they all need to be unlocked for the body in some regard. They are effective on their own and they work beautifully, don't get me wrong, but there are ways to supercharge these things, and that's by using science. What science has found to be a catalyst, so something that helps another, I guess, I think. Terrible for explaining stuff like that. Externals, balms, topicals, oils. You can just use this and rub it over your skin, rub it over your feet, whatever. Cannabis oil in a topical form is extremely effective in a number of applications. For instance, someone that's got MS or extremely bad arthritis, and then all the way down to someone with, for instance, lymph cancer. Is that so? You just really have to hit every one of these angles if you want to be able to. Should I say, not every one of them, so it's not like if you're on the oil, you don't want to have a suppository as well, balm up, do you know what I mean? We're going the whole hog, but no, I'm saying bring as many of these things together. Sorry, Lene, and anyone needs me. Josh, I've got a question.
Just one more, patches.
Oh! Okay, so Lene, she's been in Washington. She's seen it all, mate. She's seen it all. Patches, terpene precision capsules. Like, these are things that are enriched with what he's going to talk about. In Washington, they're already doing it. They're combining these receptor unlockers with all these different forms, so people are getting the best treatment that they can get for their dollar, because this shit's dear. It's really expensive unless you're growing it yourself. Buying it in Washington.
What do you use a tincture for?
Tinctures are generally to be able to stabilise something without going extremely overboard with dosages. So they're really handy in regards to being able to refine a treatment without going too far ahead. So
is it an oil that hasn't been, like, is it like the a diluted oil? Is it the same thing?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely. Same. This is a diluted oil. Sorry, an infusion is a diluted oil as well, because you're still taking the oil out of the plant, terpenes, flavonoids, etc. There's a certain portion left in your strained material, when obviously if you're using coconut oil, it's very minimal if you soak for a long period of time. So I always say to people, it's half a dozen the other. If you don't have a CO2 extractor, if you don't want to use solvents, we're going to talk about ways to be able to get your medicine out of the herb and into your system efficiently. So,
Sorry.
hit me.
You touched before about the vaporisers between 150 and 190 degrees.
Yeah, or usually 220, 150 and 220.
What do you set yours on?
A lot of the time I let it, like, I start slow and I just like creep it up. So early in the piece I'll put it on like 180 and I put my fan on low, and I do it because I use a whip, I don't use a bag, so I just got a whip that comes out of there. And I noticed that at like around 110, I get a lot of flavonoids, I get a lot of terpenoids, and then 110, about 210, I start to get that as it creeps up from about 180. But if I put it on 150, you're just there all day. So it just doesn't heat it enough that you get your medications. So
They are supposed to vary as well slightly. It's like different vaporizers.
yeah, because the element, it's all to do with digital readout versus how much air's going through it and things like that. So it's a tricky one, but to be able to get the relaxing effect that I get off it, yeah, I set it at about 200 and I generally hit about 210 and it's finished.
I set at 185, so that's probably a bit low.
185 is nice because you're getting a really, really calm level of terpenoids. Nothing's being overheated or boiled. So 185, in my opinion, is a really good medicinal level to hit it at. And then you would be able to finish it higher if you wanted to, but the CDN would come in and it would really bring you lower. So I'd say it's a real marriage. And vaporizing is awesome. Like if you're talking about how far science has gone with cannabis, vaporizing is where they're focusing a lot of energy. This is where all the boiling points for terpenes and the ability for people to be able to understand what the differences are between cannabis and medicine. And that's all these individual things being used in their own right with different patients, different case studies, and what ones are working. They're all working. They're all working. So yeah, suppositories.
Tommy Chong cured his prostate cancer.
Okay, Tommy Chong, Cheech and Chong. Biggest advocate at the moment for medicinal cannabis that I know of that's a celebrity that is from the recreational circle, right? Use suppositories to cure his prostate. Thanks to that. Awesome. Hit me.
So if you wanted to use the balm or the creams or something for arthritis, you're going to have systemic absorption.
Yes.
So what about blood testing? Does it ever show up?
THCA will almost show up as THC in a drug test. It's a tricky one.
And does the way you use, does the method that you use it have any bearing on the blood test?
It doesn't. Your fat stores it very efficiently. Your fat and cannabinoids don't do you a favour with the law. They store it like you wouldn't believe. If you rubbed
So it really
it,
doesn't matter.
smoked it, drank it, it'll store in your fat cells. And I love it for that.
Bigger to take the
Listen to this guy! He's heavily medicated! You know?
It stays my system a bit longer.
It's true. You've really got to understand. What do we need? Oh, hit me.
I was under the impression tinctures were is part part of the definition of a tincture that it's being extracted using solvents, or is that not right?
Is it alcohol-based?
Yeah,
or-
usually
alcohol.
Alcohol or glycerine.
Or agave.
Or agave. So the original in history, throughout history.
So, sorry,
No,
which type of alcohol?
in the tinctures themselves, they'll be a watered down ethanol. So ethanol below 40% to be legal in any industry. And then I think alcohol below 7% if it's sold as a homeopathic. I can't 100% remember, but there is a particular content of alcohol that is in all of them. And generally, in my opinion, any alcohol is too much to have in any tincture. But we say, we get the medicine how we get our medicine. So if there's alcohol in it and you find that it doses quite efficiently that way, rum, vodka, anything can be the extraction alcohol. If you're talking about what solvents are going to be extracting it, then that a lot of the time will be the same solvent used in the tincture.
So I mean, if you're giving like a child every 4 hours tincture, which is alcohol-based, so...
Yeah, no,
You
cut
can,
it up.
you can evaporate the alcohol. Even better.
Yeah, no. Sometimes that alcohol's making the seizures worse.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Still evaporate it.
How would you evaporate it?
Well, you
Just
Fan over it.
Okay, I'll get to this. I'll get to this.
excited.
All right, let's go. We're here. We're rolling.
So remember tea.
In teas,
Tea.
there is water suspension. Suspension is awesome. So suspending it in water, they dissolve enough that the cannabinoids will dissolve enough in hot water. And definitely consuming it in a herbal tea, giving it a marriage between other receptor synergies will help. So I'll take you through. Bubble bags. Bubble bags for extracting extracts. Now, this is a bubble bag, and the way it works is that you get your cannabis off the plant, generally raw, and you put it in the bag, right? Then you throw a heap of ice in the bag, and you put the bag in a bucket. And you put a bit of water on top and blend it or hit it with a stick. And you pull the bag up, and then all your waste product is in here, right? And after it's been mixed for a period of time, the second bag, I don't have my second bag because it's dirty, what I'm going to explain is that there's different grades of bags. So this one at the top lets a lot more product through. Its screen is a lot wider. The bag underneath it, the screen is thinner. And then the bag underneath that, the screen is thinner again. Believe it or not, those little, the little resin molecules, the trichromes that I showed you, they don't dissolve in water. They float around in water. They're waxes, they're resins, they're oils, they do not dissolve. So the reason why we can do a water extraction using a bubble bag is because we're just blending, separating with cold temperature the trichrome from the actual plant matter, and then it's falling through the bag and then layering in the very bottom, very fine sieve. You bring that up, you've got hash. So basically bring it out, because it doesn't hold water, you can just squeeze it, all the water will drip away from it, and you've got a hard block of resin. That's cannabis extract. It's all the terpenes, the smells, everything is there. There is loss in the water, so I say drink it. Yeah, bubble bags, it's just pretty much a matter of pretty much putting your product in, putting the ice and water in a bucket, so pretend that's in a bucket. Ice, water, blender, please don't use a blender, it's electric. Blender, so what I'm telling you to not do is just for safety reasons, yeah? So blender, pick the bag up, bubble it up, off to the side, you've got your second bag. That will have product in it, which is hash. You then strain that off, product, and then you could dissolve that hash in coconut oil.
So
Does
where
that
would you
make
buy
sense?
that bag, Josh?
Sorry?
Where would you buy a bag?
You buy them online on eBay. I'd probably recommend getting your middle range with bubble bags. Bubble bag, yeah.
4 or 5.
You get a 5 kit, 5 or a 4 kit a lot of the time.
Are they
Don't go too
expensive?
hard on it, otherwise stuff goes too small and you'll have heaps of stuff in your water. Do you know what I mean? So there's always loss, but you can dry the product out after it's left over. So say you
Are
pull
they
your
expensive to buy?
about 50, 60 bucks
Each?
for a kit.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah, and then a bag of ice, and that's it.
You can make your own tumblers as well.
We've got cold pressed juices, probably the best form of being able to eat it raw, aside from being able to powder buds into capsules and things like that. You can do that, which is another way of consuming raw product, which isn't psychoactive. Remember, fatty acid infusion. It's using oils and cannabis. Now, this is a sonificator. It's a jewelry cleaning device. You can put your cannabis in it with the oil and then turn it on to a particular temperature. What it's going to do is run sound through the cannabis with the oil and help separate those molecules more efficiently. I've used one of these, and I will be honest, between the two methods of soaking for a week and using one of these are almost identical. So if you don't have one, soak for a week. If you do have one, you can get your job done in a night.
What they cost?
220.
220.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff. Oh, okay. Now I'll quickly take you through some of the steps of doing this as well. So the keys. Oh, I've got a snap. What have I done? Okay, so the other ones that I'll touch on are solvent extractions. I'll go through all these extractions and stuff. I've got other slides that sort of marry up with it. Solvent extractions, don't recommend it unless you've got organic ethanols, like unless you're distilling, unless you're making your own alcohol, 100% alcohol, like in a still. I don't recommend doing it, you know, like unless you've got your own alcohol to use that's really, that's pure. Don't go and use isopropols and shellite or any solvents like that, because the options that we've got otherwise are too vast. We've got other options than using solvents and stuff if we don't have them. So just don't use them. Like if you don't, oh, we can't get ethanol, we'll use ISO. No, don't. Just use one of these other methods and you'll be still happy with your end result, unless you're wanting to smoke it. Yes, no, you can't smoke coconut oil extracts. Okay, so that you could get, you know, so what I'd have to say is a lot of the time, do not put anything, muck me slides up. So this is my ethanol thing. No-go zone. That's it. I don't have any other recommendations but putting your ethanol outside on a hot day with a chucks over the top and let it evaporate in the heat of the day. Do not use a fan. Do not use any electrical appliance whatsoever in any vicinity of that alcohol. Whatsoever. Okay?
Fumes will get you too.
Right? So you put it out on a hot day outside and you let that alcohol go away over time. It is as simple as putting metho on your finger and going like that. It leaves. It goes. Not metho, don't use metho. I'm talking organic ethanols, right? So do not evaporate with heat. You can decarboxylate later. You can get that concentrated oil and put it on. Please buy a heat mat, a heat freaking pad from the chemist. You know those auto pads? And put it under the alcohol dish. Right? Don't even put a fan there. Just put it outside with wind, you know, air movement. If it's good alcohol, it will evaporate. Trust me, it will. And it will only take, in a Queensland summer day, probably about 4 hours to do a tray about that deep. So please do not use any electrical aids whatsoever. You could kill yourself. Do not do it.
I'm very confused now because I've been learning all about it.
Rick Simpson?
Rick Simpson, yeah.
Fuck Rick Simpson. Sorry.
Why?
Sorry. Because he could kill you.
Yeah.
I don't want you dead. I want you alive, mate, to take your next treatment of cannabis. I don't want you cooked.
Yeah.
When you flick your ice, when you flick your, you know, your little button on your ice cooker, And that
Electrical
little
current,
switch
yeah.
inside there is a launch of current?
Keep it
Nuh-uh.
food grade.
No, thank you.
Everything you do, keep it food grade. That's the key.
Yeah,
So
I'm
coconut
really
oil
strong
is
on
food
this.
grade.
In the past, I've done dangerous extractions myself. I haven't got into a dangerous situation. I've always had fire extinguishers and this. I've had someone that I know get into a situation. Okay, now it was very, very similar. It was identical to the way I operate. Dude, did you have this? Dude, did you have that? Dude, what were you doing? Don't know, man. She lit up.
Oh.
Do not use a fan.
Yeah.
Do not use anything whatsoever that has power to evaporate your alcohol. Take the time. Kick back while it's evaporating in the sun. If it's not a sunny day, wait. Do you get what I mean? There's nothing that can bring you back from fucking burns. Do you know what I mean? So please, please listen to this and just take my advice. It'll only take 4 hours out in the sun without a fan. Buy a heat pad from the chemist if you want to accelerate it. They're, you know, the manual heat pads that you just break them and you put them under the dish. Done. Domo. So, yeah, I know I sound like a dick and I'm just going on about it. And everyone's like, man, it's totally different to what I know. Yeah, I'm here to educate. You know what I mean? And
Harm reduction.
harm reduction, mate. So I'm sorry, do you know what I mean? If I've burst another bubble today, but
I still like Rick Simpson.
I do too, mate. And I will be honest, I apologise to everyone that sees the videos. Don't fuck Rick Simpson, the guy saved so many lives.
I'll edit that
Respect.
out.
You know what I mean?
I'll
Edit it out, yeah.
I love
But
my editing program.
on the other hand, I've got a lot of respect for the guy, and it just comes for heart that I don't want one of his hurt. So.
They're called fuel air bombs, actually.
Prolific.
They are, but they're used in the military.
He is. And we got him to thank, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? It really stops that resin from caking up your machine, especially if you end up going to be ending up putting it in this anyway. If you're going to be using it with ethanol, you may want to leave that out. So, but okay, moving on. We're not going to have much time, are we? It's like 7:30. Okay. Fat infusions. Again, almost powder it. If you use a cold method, as I was saying, you would put your herb in the jar, fill it up with coconut oil. A lot of the time you'll put about 2 ounces to about 500 mils. So 2 ounces will powder down to about that much. The oil line will sit about there. Shake it every day, you know. Definitely shake it hard. And that will be able to be a cold extraction method. And then you can, after you've done it, see this here, how I said, have I done it? Use clean fat to flush over filters. Once you've tipped it out, and it's in that, right? So you tip that out, and it's in there. You run clean fat, hot fat, if it's possible, if you're doing a hot extraction, run hot fat through it, over the top. And you'll just drain everything that's stuck in that top lot, like that you've tried to get out. You've just done a second flush. So you're really maximising return by doing a second pull. I call it a mini pull, and it's a matter of, on your waste product, after you've drained it off, wring it out and then put a bit more fat on it and wring it out again. And then that way you're flushing your last remaining product and it all stays in the oil. So these are just tips to make sure that if you're doing any of these, that you really hit the key points that matter.
Important,
yeah. The key points that matter, because if you're doing a large lot, say a pound of leaf and bud, you grab a lettuce spinner, you know, and you put 2 litres of coconut oil or something in it, you've got a big slow cooker job going, right? You could then just use a lettuce spinner to spin out that, and it just, the velocity of warm oil in a lettuce spinner is awesome. That stuff is basically inert. It's got nothing in it, it's so light after it's come out of the lettuce spinner. So you've really pulled all the coconut oil out of the product just by using a lettuce spinner. So it's just ways of straining off and filtering off, and I put this bag in the lettuce spinner and go for it and just pull my bag out and all the oil's in the spinner. So there's ways that you can maximise return that really do help, and it lets you then use these safer extraction methods efficiently. Right, so key pointers for bubble bags. It's really a matter of working quickly. I always say to people that if you wait too long, things can really go to shit in a bubble bag. It's quite easy to muck it up if you don't work quickly. I've left one sit for too long once, and I'll never do that again. So yeah, that was a mistake my brother and I made once. So we didn't go back. We did, you do have to work quickly.
So you said there on the first line about frozen product.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of plants in the freezer. Is
Cool.
that a problem?
No.
Because it's been in there for about a month.
You'll lose 30% of the nutrient, but it's feasible.
Yeah, you lose a lot of, and sometimes it's better for a cold extraction because over time they become very brittle. Those trichromes, those little glassy beads, become extremely brittle, and they break down on their own accord in a freezer, and they can combine. They can join together. I was saying to someone the other day, and they said, why can't I freeze my coconut extract? I said, it's not an issue, it's just once you get it out of the freezer, you've got to shake shit out of it to make sure she's all spread up. So it's just a matter of things can collect together in the freezer a little bit more. When you talk about oils and things like that, they do like to collect a bit more. So yeah, again, a lot of the stuff is pretty basic with a bubble bag. If you watch some videos online, you'd be quite confident with doing it. And I say, if you can use one of these other methods, it can be a little bit more efficient. So it's just a matter of being able to extract straight off the plant. So say you've got a plant there, you want to extract the resin out of it, you can take that plant out the ground, stick it straight into the bag, and you've got product immediately. So not many extraction methods will let you do that. This is the only extraction method that will let you take it off the plant and extract it into medicine pretty much as a concentrate. Yeah, you usually have to dry it before you can extract it with ethanol or use it in fats. So these are just a real basic overview of some styles of treatment options, okay? Aggressive treatments usually can fall into the terminally sick, chronic pain, newly diagnosed diseases, people that have got ongoing issues that are very, very, very troubling for their life. So sometimes it might not be pain, it might be neurological conditions or something that is needing aggressive treatments. So aggressive treatments usually will be using concentrates. Very rarely you'll have someone on for seriously aggressive treatment. You won't have them on an oil or a tincture. It's generally a pure concentrate. So preventative treatments, a lot of the time, ongoing issues with people. And this is why I put this in. Say you've got a family history of something and you're like, I don't know. Well, I wouldn't want to go on cannabis oil. I've got no reason to. Well, what if everyone in your family's died of cancer and you're left? I'd be on the oil. You know what I mean? So preventative treatments with cancer is awesome. It's something that you can buffer. Yeah, you buffer your health and well-being beyond what most things can on everything from a cellular level all the way up to psychological levels. But as I say, you do have to be aware of cannabis treatments. Acid, meaning cold extracts, or heated extracts. I always say to people, if, for instance, you wanted to do a preventative treatment, there's no reason for you to be on the oil bombing you every day, I'd probably choose an acid treatment as a daily choice, meaning a non-active form of cannabis, raw forms, powdered buds that have been grown in cool conditions, things like that. So, and yeah, I really do recommend that if you're looking at going on a preventative treatment, using coconut oils and also tinctures that aren't alcohol. Alcohol's just a bit vicious. Like, it's not bad if it's watered down quite a lot, but as soon as you water it down so much, then you get this suspension separation between the alcohol and the oils. So it really just doesn't hold much ground for being able to make tinctures with alcohols unless they're sort of around the 40%, which is pretty rough, you know. But preventative treatments, we're talking people with epilepsy, people with pain issues, whether it be, you know, they may not have chronic pain, but they may be faced with something that gives them trouble. And it's most probably important for everyone to realise that whoever you are, whatever you've got, it's fine to be on a preventative cannabis treatment. It's probably the best option that you've got for living more years in your life. The oldest people documented in history came from a village that grew hemp and cannabis, and they consumed it on a daily basis. And to date, to date, there hasn't been a location on Earth where people have been found to clock up the years like these people. So it gives you really good well-being, and I'd have to say that if it was to be practiced by everyone on a day-to-day basis, it would increase our lifespan as a whole. You know, so
Survival.
yeah. Aggressive treatments. I sort of went over this. Whole plant concentrates, and a combination of active and non-active. So what you'll find is that once someone has been on an aggressive treatment, say for a decent period of time, they'll be then either going into remission with their cancer, they've died, a lot of things, you know. And to tell you the truth, people dying because they're not getting their treatment quick enough. You know, they're not getting the treatment now. They need it now. They're getting it on when they're on death's doorstep, when they're scrambling for life. You know, I know this. My mum's in that position. She's a doctor that has agreed with this her whole life. And it took me so long to ram it down her throat. You know what I mean? She agrees with it. She'd been yeah, man.
Have you had any cases of people blacking out from it?
Blacking out from cannabis?
Yeah.
Only if the dosage was too much. So if someone was to be smoking it, a lot of the time they could black out. For instance, if they were to have a hypoxic,
Lack of oxygen.
yeah, lack of oxygen, they stop breathing because they're stressed. That happens. Happened to schoolmates. So, you know, cannabis isn't a friendly drug when it's overused. It stresses you out and it makes you feel, if you're not used to it, you know, give it a couple of days on those same doses, you'll be fine. But really, it's not something you want to induce on anyone, is any of that stress that comes with the sedative effects of cannabis. And it is something that the body gets used to almost immediately. Within, I think it's about 48 hours of having your first dose of cannabis, you can have a fat cell loading of, I think, about 1,000 units. So it's extremely quick that it enters your system and stays there. I have people say, oh, I only had a puff on the weekend, and they're on the swab, you know, and they get caught for it or something. But again, we'll talk about legalities and we'll talk about issues that people could face if they would be going on to cannabis treatments. And yeah, we'll touch on some of that stuff with, you know, what we've got to worry about if we start, you know, jobs, law, all this, you know, we're still not allowed to do this life-saving treatment. So I'll talk about that. Preventative treatments as well. It really works on a basis where you find the right dose for someone, you keep them on that dose, and you maintain it if there's issues. For instance, seizures or something like that, dosages may need to be increased. Cancer, if the cancer hasn't gone away, they have to then go back to aggressive treatments. You know, usually you'll stay on them for 2 or 3 months or something. If the cancer's still there and the patient's still kicking, you continue them back on aggressive treatments and also then overlapping back to a preventative treatment. So a lot of the time people don't stay on a preventative treatment after they've stopped their cannabis therapy. It's very important, especially with cancer or health issues. So these are some of the safe practices that I want to discuss. Now, I know it's odd that I've put, if possible, consult your health professional, but it's within everyone's right to ask them their opinion.
There's a number of doctors who'll take emails in the United States, by the way.
Again, yeah, so asking, look, Stephen's just brought up a really valid point, and I would have expected Lene to jump in too. Finding a doctor that's going to recommend cannabis for one, to give you information, light of day and time, whatever, you're probably not going to find them in Australia. They may have a very good outlook on cannabis, but for them to personally recommend it as a medicine would be very hard for them to do unless it was behind a, what do they call it, off-the-record style setup. So ask your doctors off the record. That's all you have to do. You say, off the record, mate. How do you feel?
Without, like, I'll be up later explaining our situation, but I approached our doctor after, you know, to discuss off the record, but then when I decided to start administering cannabis to my sons, the doctor was the first person I went back to and said, I'm doing it. I want you, you know, I want your support. I want everything that you could possibly do to keep me confident or report me. I just need to know which way I'm going to go. And he was quite open to it, but said he can't document it because it's on the system.
That is so cool.
He's very grateful that I did make him aware because he even understands there is possibilities with interactions, which I'll talk about.
Michelle,
later.
that is the
So
that's the epitome
that's
of
a
what I'm
GP,
trying to explain to people.
Yeah.
Michelle's in a top tier situation, right, where she's dealing with a children both in serious situations where communicate, we have to collectively collaborate.
And yes, say off the record, mate, this is what I'm doing. I want you to make sure that I'm staying okay. You know, I'm not being.
Okay.
And they've got the Hippocratic Oath they've got to adhere to in a personal way. If something happens to you and you're their patient, they have to explain. And you know, they have a level of responsibility too.
So that's very true. Like on a
they have to make sure they can say to you, no, I don't really recommend you doing it, but on the other hand, if you're doing it, they can't stop you, but they can monitor your health, so not monitor the effect of what it's doing to you.
That's a very good point. So
that's where the judicial
could I say that turn a blind eye or discretion, you're going to find across the board. These people that are in an industry to save lives, as much as we know that they work for the mum's a doctor, by the way, that these people are in there to save lives. They're in this industry to help. They didn't become a doctor a lot of the time to make money. They truly became doctors because they
But where are they? Why are they not advocating?
they're hiding behind their statutory. It's like
It's called the Hippocratic Oath.
the Hippocratic Oath. So as soon as they sign that, that's their life, and their true beliefs stop being able to be broadcast publicly. So under the record, I'm saying, please, you know what I mean? It's if you know anyone that's starting treatment or considering it, go down that route. Now, obtain products from 100% trusted sources, or just do it yourself. That's another thing, like I'm saying, look, if you can't grow indoors and control the temperatures like I was crapping on about, don't do it. Grow outside. Do you get what I mean? It is your option, your only option, and it is a very good one. You know what I mean? So, yeah, just going back on that, saying that I'm not all about, you know, just do it yourself, put lights up, and all
Go
this
for the
sort of
best
stuff.
option when you know what's right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when you've got the information that you can go by and you've self-educated yourself enough, yeah, go down the route of trying to obtain the best you can. And it's really important. It'll give you the best result. Cannabis is probably one of the most tricky medications to be able to give someone if they know that, like for instance, if they're expecting a result. Oh, I need this result or I need that result. Everybody's different, you know what I mean? So just make sure that if you're starting them on this type of formula or that type of formula, and Joe Blow had 1 mil and we're going to give Joe Bloggs 1 mil, it may not work. So just start everyone on small doses, even if you've had a good luck with starting people on bigger doses. Questions?
The indica plant.
Yeah.
You were saying about it growing over your neighbour's fence and that before.
Sativa. Sativa's your big one.
Oh, is it?
Sativa.
Okay, so
Sativa,
the
big leaves,
indica,
big arms. Yeah.
The indica one is the shorter one. Is that flowers and it's shorter?
I've just got to silence someone else's phone. Yeah, you're good.
So, which is the one that you grow for cancer, was it? The indica?
Well, it'd be a hybrid that contains a really good profile. So you don't really want to go 100% indica or 100% sativa. The breeders have done so much good work for us that we can pick a hybrid between the two two species that have been bred together, and they'll have a synergy of CBD, THC. They'll have rich terpenoids in the pine flavours. They'll have berry flavours. They've crossed them. We've got really rich profiles of medicinal values. Talking about terpenoids, people don't go and select the plant for its smell. Well, they should, because there's a hell of a lot of plants that have got 10% THC and 10% CBD, but they've got to find the ones with the rich terpene profile that might suit them. So a number of plants, I'd say 3 different types of strains within a mixed rich ratio would be the best way. Mix it up. whole big profiles.
So how tall do they grow before they flower?
Your indicas will grow about that tall,
Right.
whereas sativa, on that first slide, you know what I mean? She was towering over someone. So a lot of the time it really, the location is dependent,
Yeah.
but most hybrids, you know.
So if you've got all these different plants going,
Yeah,
and you make the oil, can you mix it together?
most definitely. It's called combined therapies. And you can also, when you've got all your plants and you've mixed your oils together, there's no need to there's no need to activate it all. You can have a cold extract that you've done and a warm extract. You know, you've got half-half, and you can choose to then dose at the start of the day with something that doesn't bomb you out, and then at night time choose your sedatives. Or if we've got heavy muscle issues or anything like that, we then use probably a more active. Hit me.
John, just get back to your bubble bags. What's your thoughts on the dry ice extraction method?
Yeah, dry ice with these, I've noticed, is again a little bit of an art to its own. The chlorophyll that I've seen, the green colour that you get with dry ice, is limited. So you get a more, and it can keep the terpenes a little bit safer, because I think that some terpenes get into the water when you just use ice. The dry ice, being a little bit colder, just freezes them at their state and they just break off. You know that little, the glass ball, that trichrome that I showed you, how it's like a glass ball? It breaks off in cold and just lands in the bag. That tiny little microscopic glass bead is what you're collecting in mass. So it's crazy. People think it's like the coating or the stickiness. No, they're tiny little molecules that just fall off. So yeah.
So was told to blacken the freezer before you do it anyway.
Yeah, bro. It's really frozen in bubble bags is the key. Work quickly, frozen, and you'll get a good result. Dry ice is good, but I say it's probably something that I'm not as educated on. I've done it once, and our result wasn't that good, and I blame myself. So. Questions. So we covered like terpenes, and we covered flavonoids. We've got a good idea of how decarboxylating cannabis, heating it, is different to raw. Is there anything that someone's stuck on with like what they think is what they just don't know?
When you've done your oil, I've seen videos with Simpson, like
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
a teaspoon of water in it after.
Sure.
What does that actually do?
That lowers the boiling point, because water is actually lighter. The oil sits on top of the water. So the water sits on the bottom and it boils first. So water boils at 110. So he's using a manual aid. He's using the water so he can gauge when that water stops bubbling, it's all oil and it's reached temperature. So it's a temperature control mechanism. He's using water in the process so it doesn't overheat the oil on the bottom of the...
If you do it out...
It purges the...
He's trying to purge the solvent as well, because the solvent's...
He's right, Nick's right.
It also gets the oil directly off the heat source, so the heat source is at temperature, maintains at 110 degrees Celsius.
He's right. So it's a maintenance, and because we've got the bubble rising, as the bubble rises through the oil, it'll purge solvent at the same time. So personally, I'd say really, if you're doing RSO with ISO, I'd say really low heat and a triple purge with the water technique that he's using, because that would let enough bubbles rise up to keep the movement of the oil to then purge solvents. But we don't even want to purge solvents. We just use good at it.
Would you still do that if you're doing it naturally? Like if you're doing the extraction, like you were saying, just to open out on the deck or whatever? Would you still do that?
No need for water.
All right.
There'll be enough water left in that when you finish. You'll be like, what's this liquid left? It's water. Alcohol attracts water.
Okay.
All right. Cannabis legalities. We don't have it that good in Queensland. We don't have it that bad. If we were in another country, we could be put to death. So we got it good in Australia versus some of the other countries around the world. But Let's verse it against some of the other states. We're treated pretty terribly. These guys have got opened up trials. They've got different amnesties. We've got, there's a lot of people out there needing treatment that can't afford these exorbitant costs. And that's why I want to talk about this in legalities. Because the issue we're facing is that no matter whether you're a compassionate grower, whether you grow yourself or this, there's no law that is in any state relaxed enough that is going to support medicinal production of oils. So I'm a real advocate for sort of saying to people, if you are going to be growing, if you are going to be producing cannabis, just be aware that that's the limit where they let you off. And that's a small little bag. Oh no, 50 grams, it's 2 ounces, so it's like that much. You know, so you can do your extracts at 2 ounce lots and know that if you ever get caught, they're just going to give you a slap on the wrist and stuff like that.
Question, is there a shelf life on the oil once you've produced it?
Depending, to be honest, I'd have to say probably 4 to 6 months or something like that.
Oh, there is,
Kept in a vacuum container, remove oxygen from it, stop things from oxidizing. It may last longer.
How would you prevent it, say if you froze it or something, from oxidizing it?
Hazel was just saying with the MCT, so for instance, if you were doing a suspension or dissolving a pure oil in something like that, dose rates are a little bit easier and you can also refrigerate it. With the other oil, you can refrigerate it, but it's going to be hard as a rock, you're not going to be able to draw it up, all these issues. So suspending it in a form is what I call cleanup. It's a lot easier for cleanup. You know, you use this as a beneficial medium, shift the oil around. Oh my God, how do I get this? For instance, how do I get this tiny little bit of oil off the bottom of my pan? Scraping it up with a razor, oh, this is ridiculous. You drop a bit of this in, you move it around with your finger, you lick your finger and pour it out into a vial. It's simple. Do you get what I mean? There's ways of working with your products so it's not lost. There's ways of being able to create a tincture or something that is very easy to work with. So it's a matter of easy cleanup.